May my words and our listening and your words and all of our words, the Torah that we produce together, may that be consistent with the divine will for the upcoming hour and a half. We're going to talk about Isreal, about Kabbalah in Israel and Renewal in Israel today. So I was born and raised in Israel. I came to, as a young adult, to America in 1990. I've been here since. I joined Gesher Or in Boulder at the time. That was my first, the beginning of my path with Jewish Renewal. And I then met Reb Zalman in 1987. He's been my teacher until his passing, I believe, 9-10 years ago. And currently, I'm the rabbi of Congregation Beit Israel in Netanya in Israel. I just moved back to Israel this past summer, and I'm starting a new chapter. Before that, I ran Hebrew Learning Circles, which was a non-for-profit Jewish educational renewalish kind of experimental organization in New York. And I lived in New York for many, many years. Over the past couple of years, as I was beginning to return to Israel, I started to discover the scene, the landscape of renewal in Israel, and what I'm going to call indigenous renewal in Israel. About 3 years ago, I connected with Mishkan HaKavannah, which is a school that's run by Rabbah, Saphir, Noyman. She teaches Kabbalah. She's a teacher of the Torah of Baal HaSulam. So here is the focus question for this session. Is the spiritual renewal process in Israel, our spiritual homeland, qualitatively different from Jewish spiritual renewal in the U.S.? And can the Israeli renewal experience inspire us here in the U.S.? So, apropos, what does falafel have to do with Kabbalah? It's very simple. If you want to say all of Kabbalah, all of Luriani Kabbalah, all the Zohar on Regel Achat, it's falafel. Why? Because according to the Zohar and the Ari, after creation, after Tzimtzum, all of reality becomes basically two things: a vessel, a kli, and light, or. So if the pita is the kli and the falafel is the light, you have all of Kabbalah right there. I want to focus on the shalshelet that starts from early in the 20th century in Israel to now. And that specific shalshelet is Baal HaSulam was a renewalist. He died in 1954, so he did his renewal in Israel, which included, and I'll talk about that a little more in depth when I talk about his life, but it included a sense that Zionism and the foundation of the state of Israel was a very deep renewal process. And he saw it, contrary to most of the Zionists, from the spiritual perspective. And we'll look at that in a moment. We'll read some of his words. Then, middle of the 20th century comes Reb Zalman. Not in Israel, here, but the same impulse. Something is shifting. There's a paradigm shift. Something has to shift. And with brilliance and with courage, really sets in motion a process that here we are. We are the fruits of, the proof. And then 21st century, Rabbah Saphir Noyman springs out of the Israeli modern experience of those who go to India, those who are in all this, all the cults and all the spiritual schools have vibrant centers in Israel. It's very vibrant. And she renews the study of Kabbalah and some kind of search for an authentic Judaism, authentic to the land and the zeitgeist that she's living in. So that's the Shalshelet that we're going to look at today. A word about the Baal HaSulam. Rabbi Yehudah Ashlag, born in 1885, a little before my grandfather, died in 1954, also known as Baal HaSulam in reference to his major literary masterpiece. He interpreted the entire Zohar, and it's called the Sulam, ladder, right? So he's Baal HaSulam, the author of the ladder. He was an Orthodox rabbi and Kabbalist born in Poland. He was recognized as a Talmud prodigy at the age of 12 and ordained as a rabbi at the age of 18 and served at that time on the Beit Din, I believe, in Warsaw. In 1922, he decides to immigrate to Israel, to Yerushalayim, with his family. And in Yerushalayim, he draws followers. He has a group, a spiritual work group, based on Kabbalah, based on his sort of modern interpretation of the Zohar and the Ari. He was an interpreter of both the Zohar and the Ari. He lives in Yerushalayim, then he moves to Tel Aviv. He was also very versed in the sort of the science and philosophy of the time. He knew Freudian psychology, he knew Marxism, he was a bit of a socialist himself. He was enamored by the kibbutzim. He didn't care if you were secular, chiloni, or dati. In this article, he's teaching us, he asks the question, why do rabbis, when they teach Kabbalah, they say, Ani megalet tefach u'mechaset tfachaim. I'm revealing 1 inch, but I'm concealing 2 inches. Then that comes from, it's in the Gemara, it's in a different context, but in the world of Kabbalah, it means that I can't give it all to you. I can just give you a taste, right? So he explains why, and he says there are 3 reasons that the Kabbalists of yore actually kept it a secret. The Kabbalah was a very esoteric sort of, only the adepts, the back of the yeshiva in some kind of hidden room would study Kabbalah. That was the tradition. He says there are 3 reasons. One reason is because it is a non-achutz. It won't make any difference. If it doesn't make a difference, why teach it? So that's one reason. The next is there's secrets of the Kabbalah that cannot be put into words. They defy language. So that's another. We don't want to talk about those things with language that may be inaccurate. The third reason that Kabbalah was being hidden is because you can only share it when it's the will of Hashem, when it comes from above. We need to have permission to share Kabbalah. It has to be by divine will. So those are the 3 terms.
ולדבר זה נתכוונו במליצתם. גיליתי טפח ואחסה טפחיים. שכוונתם כי קרא להם עניין לגלות דבר חדש שלא שיהרו הקודמים לו. ועל כן מרמז כי רק טפח אחד, כלומר חלק א' מג' חלקי ההסתרה הנ"ל, הוא מגלה שער.
When the rabbis say, I'm only giving you 1 inch and covering 2 inches, what they mean is that when there is an opportunity to offer something new, a chiddush, something chadash, renewal, right? When a Kabbalist has something new to offer that nobody ever offered before, that is the tefach, right? Why? Because now it's nachutz. It is the first part of those 3 reasons. Because what was up till now was not necessary. Maybe in this generation, now it's necessary. You see the principle of renewal? There are things that are now, as the generations change, now it is ready to be revealed.
I'll go verbatim, kind of.
Yeah.
And please will know those who are looking at my contrasts, like files that I intend to print articles, yes,
my writing,
that I intend to print them out during this year, which all of them are new, And these specific news are not brought up in a full Torah, in its purity.
That's right.
And to be exact, in any book of those who preceded me. And I received them mouth to mouth from my teacher, Zichrono Livracha, who was musmach, who was
an
expert.
A real Kabbalist, like he knew his stuff.
Okay, he was certified to the thing, and that means that he too got the messages from his teachers,
right.
Pe, mouth to mouth.
That's right. So he writes in other places that he talks about how Kabbalah has been transmitted from teacher to student in a hidden kind of way, and he's telling us that he has received this knowledge, but it is his assessment, his calling, that the generation has changed, and it's ripe now to actually share Kabbalah. And in fact, what we're going to see that his project becomes to disseminate Kabbalah widely to the community. And he's conscious. This is the consciousness of renewal, right? He's assessing the need of the generation, and he feels, or he knows, or who knows how he knows, that it's his calling to introduce a new, like a lot of renewal, like Yehudah when he wrote up the Mishnah or whatever, when Hillel did Prospul or...
ומכאן תבין את היבשות והחשוכות שמצאנו בדורנו זה.
את היבשות.
היבשות והחשכות. And from here, whatever he wrote previously, you will understand the dryness and the darkness that this generation,
that we find in this generation,
שלא נשמע כמוהן בכל הדורות שקדמו לנו.
We've never seen anything like this. We've never seen this kind of dryness and darkness ever before. Even the pious, even the learned, even the great rabbis are inflicted with this dryness and darkness, and they're no longer studying with an orientation to the inner teaching.
מגודל צערי לא אוכל להאריך בזה, and because I'm so heartbroken because of that, I will not talk about it.
So it's a little funny to our ear, but I want you to appreciate that he's hurting. He's come from Poland to Yerushalayim, and in Yerushalayim, and he's a prodigy. Remember this. He is somebody who he has the whole Gemara, everything is in his head, and all the Zohar and all the Ari. That's who he is, right? And he's meeting up with his peers. He's meeting up with other great pious, Haredi folks in Yerushalayim, and he can't believe his eyes. And we're going to see this in the next text. He's a very deep, sensitive mystic, and he finds a lot of learned Kabbalists who can quote you the Ari, backward and forward. But it's not something that's not connecting, and he's despairing. He is a budding, an emerging new paradigm within the context of Kabbalah and Jewish scholarship, and he meets the what's the word? The stale Jewish institutional kind of conservative, pious Jerusalem community, and he's despairing. And let's go to the next page.
עד שפגשתי את המפורסמים שבהם, הם האנשים שכבר כילו שנותיהם על הלימוד בכתבי הארי והזוהר. Whatever was before was, till I met those very famous among them, those people spent their times studying Ari and the Zohar. והצליחו שכל ספרי הארי שגורים בפיהם עד להפליא ושם להם כקדושים שהיו בארץ. And they succeeded so much in their studies of the Ari that it was fluent in their mouth.
No. They V'sam lahem, and they consider themselves
ושאלתים אם למדו אצל רב שהייתה לו השגה בפנימיות הדברים. And then I asked them if they studied of a Rav, אצל רב, which had the understanding of the inner workings.
And hasaga can also be translated as the attainment.
Attainment of the inner workings. וענו לי, חס מלהזכיר, אין כאן שום פנימיות, זולת דברים ככתבם, מסורים לנו ותו לא. There is no פנימיות and inner workings and all of that. What is written? זולת דברים ככתבם. Whatever is written.
Literal.
Yes.
Let me pause here, Bella, if we could. I want to just pause for commentary. What I want to appreciate here is that, Chevra, listen, we're so conditioned to be open to the inner process, to be self-reflective, to meditate, to be nuanced, to learn with subjective interpretations, many interpretations, to personalize it, right? To see how does it apply in my life. There's an old paradigm where your subjective interpretation doesn't matter. What's written is what's written. And that's the community. Those are the people he's meeting. Okay? These are Jewish, pious fundamentalists where they read the Ari or they read the Zohar. It's what it says.
Okay, ושאלתים אם
רב חיים ויטל.
רב חיים ויטל. זיכרונו לברכה, השיג פנימיות הדברים, וענו לי, ודאי לא השיג יותר ממה שאנו משיגים.
Right?
ושאלתים על הארי זיכרונו לברכה עצמו, וענו לי, ודאי לא ידע פנימיות יותר, היימנו בכל מה שידע, מסר לתלמידיו, הרב חיים ויטל, זיכרונו לברכה, וכך, לכן הגיע אצלנו, וצחקתי מאוד עליהם. So yes, those previous rabbis who consider themselves knowers, and if there is any inner working. And they said, no, whatever is written, and this is how we got it. This was the previous. And then I asked them if Rav Chaim Vital, which was a great scholar, and he wrote the Ari's writing, if he attained the pnimiut, the inner workings of the things. And they answered, obviously, he didn't achieve or didn't obtain more than we.
Right.
And then I asked them about the Ari Zichrono Livracha himself. And they answered me, obviously, he didn't know any inner working more than us. And everything he knew, he transmitted to his student, Arav Chaim Vital, Zichrono Livracha. And then I very much laughed at them.
He threw his hands up in the air. It's like, this is crazy. What am I dealing with? Cover, by the way, I just want to say we're gonna stop here with Baal HaSulam. It's a little taste, okay? But what I want us to more than to appreciate his Torah is vast, and we don't have time for that. But to appreciate the process he's in, and he's somebody who's internally referenced. He's a spiritual seeker. He's feeling it. He wants he wants to drink from the nectar, the heavenly nectar. And he's dealing with people who are literalists. We see how he's a renewalist, right? First half of the 20th century. How about we skip now to the Rabbah?
Yes.
You ready?
Yes.
She began teaching Zohar and Baal HaSulam and the Ari to a small group of women about 20 years ago. It was a women's group exclusively. Her original women's study group developed into Mishkan HaKavannah. You can look Mishkan HaKavannah up on the website. They have a website. It's a thriving Kabbalah school that now includes men. And it's near Tel Aviv. It's a little bit north of Tel Aviv. It's actually Kibbutz Yakub. One of the things that drew me to the Rabbah was that she speaks in modern Israel language. She's a modern, educated, smart, progressive, ish, a little bit like Baal HaSulam, sort of drawing from the kind of secular. She integrates the secular and the religious sides, and she's done the whole journey that a lot of Israelis have done. This esoteric school and that spiritual path, and the next and whatnot. So she's very versed in that whole experience. I felt seen. I felt like as an Israeli, I felt very recognized and on a vibrational level with her teaching.
רציתי לשאול על נוקבה. אז מתחבר, כן. אז מה היא...
Bella, will you translate for us?
So she was asked what's the Nukba and what's its relationship, according to the Kabbalah, to the reality that we are seeing.
Nukba means feminine. Nukba in Dakar is Aramaic for Nukba is feminine. It's nekeva b'ivrit. She really embodies a spiritual feminism. And let's see what she said. And again, this is just a little taste. So.
שאנחנו צריכים ללמוד את כוח הפענוח. הנוקבה היא באה מהשורש שלה, היא הנקב. כלומר, הגדרת החיסרון.
So she says the Nukba comes from the word nekev, which is a hole, which is a puncture.
Yeah.
And she says this is Hagbarat HaChisaron, which means like you're adding to the
lack, to the vacuum. So
Hagbarat,
yeah.
like you're amplifying the Chisaron.
Right. So in the context of the Ari, what the vacuum means is tzimtzum. Right? There's a vacuum. And part of the teaching, Baal HaSulam, I mean, a lot of what she teaches is actually Baal HaSulam, is that to know what's lacking, that our life in the physical body in this world is by definition always has a lack. There's something missing, always. So again, it's the vessel and the light, right? The kli. The kli, by definition, there's a lack in the kli, and the light fills the kli, right? This is a very basic dynamic in the Ari especially. And she's talking about the nukba as the energy of the vessel, energy of the lack, and I think she will talk about bringing consciousness, bringing owning that. That is femininity. One of the ways she talks about femininity.
החיסרון היא הגדרת האור המתפשט.
הגדרת החיסרון?
So the more we can inhabit the chisaron, the more we can be conscious of the chisaron, the more light will come in. If we distract ourselves from the chisaron, we're not allowing the light to come in. We need to know what's missing in order to fill it. This is the age of the feminine, right? This is the age of feminine leadership, of feminine energy. Rabbi Zalman talked about that. And she kind of spells it out with a little more in the context of the Ari and Baal HaSulam.
זאת אומרת, אם אני מסמנת עיגול, זה בדיוק המקום שבו האור יכול להתפשט. סימנתי את כן. זה מגדיר את החיסרון. זאת אומרת שהנוקבה בעצם, מתוך הרשימו שיש בה, יש בה את הידיעה העמוקה ביותר של החיסרון באור.
Okay, if you define the circle, you define the boundaries, but you also define the space for the light to come in.
Yes, Reformation is the English translation by the Rabbah of the word tikkun. Okay, so the Reformation of is the tikkun of. Please.
The Reformation of our time is not just tackling the ego. It's not destroying the ego. On the contrary, growing it. Its receptive nature, to such a degree that there is more of the nature of God, more of the nature of the Creator in the world. But then we are responsible for its bestowal. So the whole creation is actually the feminine.
The function of the male is to bestow. The function of the male By the way, this is not man-woman. Let's be very clear. She's not talking about men and women. She actually says that. Everybody has both. Everybody has. Jung said that. We know that, right? So it's about the masculine and the feminine attributes, right? The attribute of the male is bestowal, is giving. And we see that in the biology. The male gives the seed. The woman is a receptacle, right? The feminine is the receiver. But for the world to work, the feminine has to receive in order to give. They both have to work together, right? Once we fall into the trap of receiving and holding on to it for ourselves, then we get stuck. That is the spiritual graveyard. You are an amazing receptacle. We did a lot of good feminine work here, listening and taking it in. There's three things that I think the Rabbah is unique with in terms of the renewal and transformation of Judaism. One is what we just saw, is the feminine, the nukba. She holds that as a unique spiritual space and a unique spiritual perspective. And thus, she's renewing traditional feminism because she really focuses on the spiritual element of feminism, not only the political and the social justice part of it. So in my experience, there's a very wholesome kind of work with the feminine. She also embodies the feminine, because she's a woman. She has a very strong male side. She's very assertive as a teacher. The other thing that she highlights in her teaching, which I think is unique, and she takes it a step further from Baal HaSulam, is the identity of Israel as a substitute for Jewish identity. Baal HaSulam was a Zionist, but she talks about the spiritual project of the people of Israel is Israel, not Yahadut. She says that Yahadut, the term Yahadut, the term of art, Yahadut, is talking about the old paradigm. It's talking about the galut, about the exile. When we talk about Yahadut, about learning Judaism, we're actually talking about a paradigm that's pre-1948 or pre-Herzl. But now that we have Israel, there's a new identity emerging, and she's a very good voice for that, very good representative of the Israel person, the new Israel person. And on a spiritual level, it is very, very mind-boggling. It really stretches me, because I am so planted in Yahadut. I went to rabbinical school to learn Judaism. And I'm kind of wrestling with learning Israelism. It's very interesting. This is a very radical renewal that's happening in Israel, because it's coming out of the zeitgeist of the wars, of the high tech, of the conscience, of the political struggles, of the rejection of the tension between the Chiloni and Dati. All that whole process, is giving an emergence to a new definition of the spiritual project of the people of Israel. And the third thing that she represents that is also radical renewal, reconnecting with the authentic and the prophetic. She promotes prioritizing the study of Kabbalah, especially Zohar and Ari and Baal HaSulam, with intentional community. This is not a solo project. This is really like a minyan. You need a minyan, you need a group, a spiritual work group. And I think the most important thing that she focuses on developing the inner spiritual skills. We don't study just to study. We study to build something, to develop something. Remember, like Baal HaSulam, when he was like, what about the inner work? The Rabbah is radical with that. So was Reb Zalman. Reb Zalman was a little more gentle. She's a little more like, this is inner work. This is not philosophy. This is not academics. Kabbalah is not academics. Kabbalah is the inner development of some capacity that makes us a bigger Israel, both individually and collectively. The thing that excites me, and I hope that you will take this home, is that it's easy to take, here in this community, it's easy to take renewal for granted because we are sort of like swimming in this world of renewal. But there's something about the inner space and inner work, the bringing the feminine aspect into dominance or into balance in the spiritual sphere. And now, according to the Rabbah, rooting that in our holy land, in our sacred land, in the experience of Isreal, is a very radical paradigm shift that is happening. And I just want to shed a light on that. However, if you would indulge me, I'm really dying to share this story with you, and with that we'll conclude. This is a real story. It happened in Lat Chaim in, back in 95. I was lucky to be allowed, because I could speak Hebrew, allowed to join the advanced student class with Reb Zalman. And maybe you were there, David, I don't remember who's there. And we learned a book called Miftachei Shar Chochmat HaEmet by Shaul Boyman, Warsaw, also prodigy, who wrote a thin sefer on Kabbalah, kind of summarizing all of Kabbalah in a very thin sefer. Rama said, if you know this sefer, you know your Kabbalah, you're good. And that was the class we did at Lat Chaim. And at the very end, the class ends, and it's the last session. It was a mind-blowing class. I mean, Reb Zalman was in his utmost, highest of channeling. I mean, he was talking there. He was going into so many dimensions that my brain was like melting and falling apart. And everybody felt it. I mean, the Idra, we had our HaKavannah. It was such a peak moment, and nobody wanted to end, but it was ending. It was a morning class. It was our last day. It ended. We were all filing out to the door to go to the dining room. And as we're filing out, so Reb Zalman is walking down, and everybody's crowded around him, and the group is moving, and somebody throws a question at Reb Zalman. The question was, I don't remember. It was something about him being a Kabbalist. I don't remember exactly how the question was presented. He stopped in his tracks, and everybody stopped. And there he was, and the person who was asking the question was in front of him. We were all around in a tight circle. And he said, listen, sometimes people ask me whether I'm a speculative Kabbalist or a practical Kabbalist. Let's get the question, right? What's speculative and practical Kabbalist? They're both kind of derogatory. They're both sort of like unappreciated. If you're speculative, you're high in the sky and, whatever. And if you're a practical Kabbalist, what are you? You're a witch.
A magician.
What? A magician, right? So both are sort of less valued than the contemplative Kabbalist, which is sort of the more serious, Kabbalist. So he said that somebody trying to mock him once says, Reb Zalman, are you a speculative Kabbalist or are you a practical Kabbalist? And we were all sort of, the room went silent because we all wanted to know, how did he answer that? And he said, well, what do you want me to be, an impractical Kabbalist? That was his answer. And then he looked at us. He got our attention, right? There was silence in the room. And he looked at us and he said, all Kabbalists, go and do your work. I want to offer that to you. You're all Kabbalists. Go do your work. So I want to offer that to you in conclusion. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Folks, I'm doing music here at 5:45. Anyone else? What are you doing?